My name is Jose Corona. I'm the Mayor's Director of Equity and Strategic Partnerships. And I have the pleasure of kicking off today's launch of the Civic Design Lab. You'll hear from the mayor, you'll hear from the people who made this possible. Any effort that tries to make big change in the city requires input from everybody. And as you heard, you often hear the mayor talk, and one of her key priorities, she always says, how do we make city government less irritating? So who has experience working with city government? Who has experienced some irritating moments with city government? All right. So this is what today is all about, is actually, the old adage that you can't continue doing the same things the same way because you get the same results. So the Civic Design Lab really was born out of that sentiment that we have to try new things. And we have to try to do something differently. And it starts with looking internally at the organization. So many cities across the country have chief innovation officers. Well, here in Oakland, the mayor said, the innovation already exists, but it exists in our staff. So how about we actually lift up the staff that actually do amazing work and find the innovation in that? So that's how Oakland is doing it a little bit different. So we don't have a chief innovation officer. What we have is a lot of innovative staff that just need to participate, and they need the platform and that guidance to show how innovative and entrepreneurial they are. So that's why we're here today. And before we start and I introduce our mayor, I want to give a huge shout out to Orson Aguilar, the president of the Green Lighting Institute. When we were talking about where to hold this launch, we wanted to do it in a place that reflects actually the mission and vision that we have for this approach of design thinking and human-centered design and critical race theory. And what better place than to do it in a place that it's all about changing and really looking at economic and social justice movements in the city, in a place like this building. You feel it when you walk in the room that this place is about change. Change in a positive way, and always looking at how do we actually improve our services, our programs to really benefit community. So I just want to really shout out to Green Lighting for letting us have this event here. So thank you. And finally, there's so many people that get involved in putting on this event, and we have a lot of volunteers, we have a lot of fellows. So I want to thank all the volunteers and fellows that helped put on today, and you'll hear from some of them today. So without further ado, I want to introduce, I'm not going to introduce the sponsors in 100 Union cities. You'll hear from them later, so they'll get their due introduction. But I really want to introduce Mayor Libby Schaaf, and I want to do it in a way where, this is something that she's really serious about. And she really expects us to follow through on this work. She really wants to make Oakland less irritating. She really wants Oakland to work for its residents. She really wants Oakland to work for especially the most vulnerable populations. So there's no bigger champion of this work than Mayor Libby Schaaf. So without further ado, Mayor Libby Schaaf.
In 2011, I was a brand new city council person, and Occupy Oakland happened. And I can't tell you what it felt like as someone who is so in love with my city to see these shameful images on television of tear gas being fired on peaceful protesters. That image was so against everything that I believed our city stood for. That image was not a proud moment for government. In my moment of despair, I knew that my city was so much better than that, stood for things that were better than that, and that my city government was full of people that believed in what I will call our shared Oakland values. And in that grief, my therapy, so to speak, was I was determined to become a Code for America city. I see a Code for America little hoodie on, awesome. There probably were more, beautiful things that I could have done, but this was my thing that I could do in that moment as a brand new junior council member. And it was by joining this community of people that believed that government could return to being for the people, by the people, less irritating. I mean, that's kind of a low bar. But actually in service of and connected to the people that we came to serve, and serving the most vulnerable first and best. That value of Code for America was one that resonated with me. Code for America was where I started to find kind of fellow champions within the bureaucracy. People like Kiran, who over salad, we talked about freeing the entrepreneurial bureaucrat. And we knew they were out there. And in fact, a lot of you are in this room right now. I see you. In fact, some of you were with Oakland and you left, but you're back in this room because you still haven't really left Oakland, have you? Code for America introduced me to a concept called civic design thinking. And it allowed me to discover why I am so in love with this thing that is telling me whether I'm on time. But this thing, this iPhone, why do I love this thing so much? Because it meets my needs. It meets a lot of my needs. It connects me to a whole lot of different things when I want to be connected to them, in the way I want to be connected to them. And why is it so good at that? Because Apple spent a whole lot of time and money seeing what the user wanted, what that user's experience was going to be like. Not what was convenient for its engineers, not by doing things the way they had always been done, because how many of us who work in government hear that phrase from time to time? But by starting with the user. That's what design thinking is about, human-centered design. And it also believes that you start with the most vulnerable, people who are the hardest to reach, who might need the services the most, and who have the least natural access. That is how you design well. So it is thrilling to be here after all these, salad conversations, to talk about a dream that has become a reality. And today we're focused on the service part of the Civic Design Lab. But I'm also want to tease you that we are going to also be celebrating the physical part of the Civic Design Lab. And I have to recognize Mylene Garcia, who, how many hours did you spend? Mylene and a team of amazing architects and designers have created a physical Civic Design Lab that we are going to be officially launching and inaugurating on March 20th. So mark your calendars for March 20th. But today we're here to talk about the service that we're calling the Civic Design Lab. So, thank you. This is all about Oakland being as Oakland as we can. It is all about government realizing its full potential of serving its citizens as best we can. and of really honoring the incredible talent, commitment, and values of our incredible City of Oakland workers. So thank you for being here today, and I'm very excited to unveil the work that we've already been doing. We're true to our mission. We actually kind of piloted ourselves before we launched the official work, which is all about piloting. With that, thank you, Jose.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I didn't have salads, but I had burgers and beers and fries when I had these conversations, and it still worked. And the person who actually I had when I came to the city of Oakland, I've never been in government, and 2.5 years I had the pleasure of joining Mayor Schaaf's administration. And this was, when I got introduced to this work, it was actually one of the works that I said, wow, you truly can be an entrepreneur inside. And one of the persons that I think the mayor referenced that was part of helping me be entrepreneurial as well was Jain, who was the former Chief Resiliency Officer for the City of Oakland. Before that, she was also City Attorney. And now she left the City of Oakland to join an amazing startup as the COO and General Counsel of Neighborly. So still working in some way or in some form with governments and trying to improve how they better serve people. But Kiran became a friend. She became an advisor. She became a mentor. And together, you mentioned Mai Ling, and we also have Karen Boyd. We all were thinking about how do we actually free this entrepreneurial bureaucrat inside. So we all did that. But I wanted to really bring up Jain so she can talk about kind of the founding of this work, and then also take us to the rest of the program to introduce other players who were integral components of this work, which was Rockefeller and the 100 Resilient Cities, and Citi with an I, Citibank, who made all this possible to actually help us get and recruit amazing talent in Alexandra Lee, who we will hear from and introduce later. But for now, Kiran, my friend, come on up.
Good afternoon. So a little over a year ago, many of us in this room came together to launch the Resilient Oakland Playbook, the culmination of a 3-year community-based strategy focused on building more resilient government, communities, and infrastructure. Today, we are celebrating the launch of one of the flagship actions from that playbook, the Civic Design Lab, which intentionally embeds people-centered, equitable design processes inside local government to address issues such as healthy housing and living wage jobs. CDL recognizes that the governing institutions that we have developed over the last 50 years were not built to withstand the challenges of the next 50 years. Our institutions have been based on a set of rules informed by human experience. And these rules have led to layers and layers of process we call bureaucracy. But over time, our bureaucracy has become disconnected from this human experience. But through the Civic Design Lab, we are taking a first principles approach and returning to this intent to form fresh and responsive services that build a more resilient and equitable city. That is our mission, and why I answered the call to public service when the mayor asked me to serve as the city's Chief Resilience Officer. And through this project-based work, CDL is also connecting with communities to design new agile ways of doing the business of government to serve all Oaklanders. How do we increase access to services for those who need them most while building a more nimble and responsive government? How do we do more with less? We will hear from some case studies later on that answer these questions. But first, I'd like to introduce those who are making this ongoing resilience work possible, which could not continue without the generous support of the 100 Resilient Cities pioneered by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Citi Foundation. Much gratitude to Kiran Letourneau at 100 RC, who supported Oakland's innovative approach to resiliency. Thank you for always saying yes. And to Vicki Joseph and Shawnee Keck of the Citi Foundation, who recognized CDL early on as our humble response to the question, how might we better manage our resources to better serve people in need? As Churchill said, you've heard me say this quote, we're out of money. Now it's time to think. CDL is very much a reflection of this truth. But thanks to our generous sponsors, we're not quite out of money yet. We can focus on the thinking and doing part of building a more resilient Oakland. So with that, I'd like to introduce Kiran.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am humbled and honored to be here today in front of all these fantasticrats, is that the word? To represent 100 resilient cities at this exciting moment for the city of Oakland and the global resilience movement. 100 resilient cities, as many of you know, we partner with 100 cities around the globe to help them become more resilient to the physical, social, and economic challenges that are a growing part of the 21st century. But it is our unique partnership with Oakland that I'm especially proud of. Under the leadership of Mayor Libby Schaaf, Oakland has truly been at the forefront of thinking innovatively about how to address some of their more pressing challenges. With the release of the Resilient Oakland Playbook in 2016, Oakland put forth a vision for a more trustworthy government, a thriving town where Oaklanders can put down roots, and more vibrant and connected Oakland with resilient infrastructure. Wow, that's amazing. The playbook put forth nearly 40 concrete actions to help achieve these goals. This is really a city at the forefront of thinking holistically about its challenges. But one of those flagship actions that we're so excited to launch today was the Civic Design Lab. I can still remember in working with the City of Oakland and Kiran about her zeal for the Civic Design Lab as a key resilience initiative. Maybe there were a few people back at my office and elsewhere throughout our network that questioned how Civic Design Lab and resilience can actually interconnect. But it was in her vision that Civic Design Lab was a means to help government become more agile, to address some of the key social issues, using those design thinking principles to improve services, to make them more effective, that people really began to understand the deep connection and special relationship between resilience and design thinking. I often get asked in our other cities we work with about the how of resilience. Okay, I understand that resilience is about addressing some of your pressing challenges, but how can government do it? How can government actually break down silos and work in an innovative way? And every single city that asks me that question, I point to Civic Design Lab. I say, go look at the Resilient Oakland Playbook. Look at the flagship initiatives. Look at Civic Design Lab, and you will see the how of resilience. You will see the practice of resilience. You will see how government is trying to address those that are most vulnerable in a unique and innovative way. As you all know in this room, Oakland has always been at the forefront of building movements. And now, yet again, Oakland is at the forefront of building this movement. And I want to thank everyone in this room, including Mayor Schaaf, Kiran, Jain, the champions throughout the whole city of Oakland, Citigroup, and Alexandra for making this project a reality. We cannot wait to partner with you and see what is to come. Thank you.
Kiran missed the notes that she was supposed to introduce Shawnee as well. So you mentioned Citi, and man, Shawnee is the real deal. I mean, we've known Vicki Joseph, and she's a champion of the city of Oakland. She's a former Skyline girl, like the mayor. So they went to school together, so there's a lot of history there. You guys can talk about it later. But when I met Shawnee, and Vicki introduced Shawnee and said, she's the new person that's going to be leading the work in the East Bay, man, this woman has energy. She's got energy, but it's all channeled in the right way. She's a champion of the work that we do. She came to us from working at this work and doing this work in London. So she's not someone, just a banker that comes and tries to be helpful. This is someone that actually knows what they're talking about in this work. She's a design thinker herself. She's innovative. She's creative. She's an entrepreneurial banker. Is there such thing? You know, Anthony's a banker too. I like him too. So there's some of us that are, you know, entrepreneurs, and Shawnee's one of them. So Shawnee has also just become an amazing champion of the work that we do, not only around the Civic Design Lab, but in other efforts into the city of Oakland that we're trying to do. So without further ado, Shawnee Keck, please.
Hello. Everybody else has said good afternoon, so I'll just say what's up. Our Northern California market manager, Vicki Joseph, and I are very thrilled to be here. Along with Mayor Schaaf, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the amazing Oakland staff. And a special thank you to our hosts at Greenlining. When Alexandra told me that this launch was here, I couldn't think of any place better, as this building very much embodies the kind of work that we're trying to do today. As they said, my name is Shawnee Keck, and I am the Community Development Officer for City Community Development in Oakland and the East Bay, and I look after our investments and city's commitment to expanding financial inclusion and economic empowerment for underserved communities. Many of the programs we support around the country involve the delivery of public services, services which aim to increase financial access or build household resiliency. As funders, we look for services that can overcome the constraints and challenges that residents face every day and deliver real, tangible value that makes a difference. Oakland CDL is the second service delivery program Citi has supported. Over the past few years, we've been working with New York City government to build their capacity in service design. And this past October, we launched the nation's first service design studio, which was based in a city government agency until this one. Our goal is to deliver effective and empowering services. But we're funding initiatives like this because they work. Service design enables agencies to plan in the complexity of supporting residents throughout their lives. This method is in practice all over the world, and it's changing everything from health and social care to, as our New York team found, free tax preparation and naturalization services. It's the type of innovation that doesn't require a lot of investment, a lot of engagement maybe, but it yields a massive impact. I've been designing public services with and within government for over a decade in the UK, and I watched similar programs in Latin America. And not only have I seen better service outcomes, but we see an actual difference in the experience of the delivery staff and of residents. People feel connected, appreciated, and most importantly, trusted. In fact, it's incredible to launch this program here in Oakland, where 50 years ago, some local residents stood in front of City Hall and requested all power to the people. We've learned since then that the most important power-sharing moment comes from the daily interactions between the people who deliver and use public services. This is the very business of government. And collaborative government makes those moments empowering. This is the power to define a service, how it's used, how it helps you, where and when it should be delivered. That is nothing short of revolutionary. Our director at Citi Community Development describes service design as a better answer to the old ways of business process reengineering, where experts managed service improvement by looking for efficiency. These people were defining value as reducing time and cost, and government delivered public services at people. Residents were left relying on services that were more efficient, but didn't necessarily meet their needs in a convenient or accessible way. Infrastructure like the CDL lets us redefine who the expert is and builds the capacity to listen to all the ways that people need support, embracing that complexity as we look for solutions. Participatory process engineering sounds really boring, but it's absolutely magic when we can see through the eyes of residents and the delivery staff that support them. And most importantly, it conveys that these two people matter. Citi Community Development strongly supports Oakland in starting with the city staff, really reaching into their experience of delivery, which opens all of us up to their expertise. Only they can see into the machinery and identify their daily work where internal government systems have gone the wrong direction. And instead of supporting people, residents are ending up gridlocked or annoyed. Only staff and the residents they see every day can fix it by working together to find effectiveness and efficiency. The CDL gives city staff a dedicated space to think and try things out and build their capacity to really work in close collaboration with service users. And that trust saves money, because what good is paying for a service if no one uses it? Enabling residents to express their needs and constraints for themselves and working alongside frontline staff to develop a solution that they can trust is also the infrastructure of inclusivity, which makes this method a particularly transformational method for vulnerable groups, residents that at Citi Community Development we care very much about, especially in cities like Oakland that are facing unprecedented change. So Citi is so excited, and I personally couldn't have been more over the moon to be able to provide the key initial support towards the development and the build out of the Civic Design Lab. And congratulations to Oakland as you remake government one service at a time. We're looking forward to sharing your successes and findings alongside you and with other cities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawnee. And now, the story goes, true story, that when we were thinking about how we really launched the Civic Design Lab, Kiran sent me this email with a resume, and it was an amazing resume. This woman she's been an author of a book called Resilience by Design. She was a member of Mothers That Code. She had been doing this for decades. She's been a teacher and teaching design thinking for years and years and years. And I'm like, holy moly, how do we get her? She's like, well, we need money. That's where Shawnee came in. I'm like, Shawnee. I forwarded that email to Shawnee. Shawnee, hey, check this out. We have a person that's actually perfect to lead this work in the city of Oakland. And long story short, that's why we're here today. And then that's when we got introduced to Alexandra Lee, Dr. Alexandra Lee. I won't read her bio, but she is an amazing individual. She's a teacher of this work. She is an amazing human being. She's an amazing mother. And she's the one that actually put all this together. And she's one of the reasons also why we're live streaming this on YouTube and on the mayor's Facebook page. So for those of you listening, thank you for joining us as well. So I want to introduce you someone that I just really respect and have really enjoyed working with over the past several months. So Alexandra, please join us.
Thank you. So glad to be here, and thank you all for making time in your day. It's, a weekday, and it's not 6 o'clock in the evening. But today we're really thrilled to be announcing our public-facing website of Civic Design Lab, where we will be telling Oakland's story of resilience. So you can visit civicdesignlab.org, and you can find out all about our current projects. And most importantly, this website exists to embolden our commitment to people in Oakland by creating a live dashboard of our process and our projects. We also want to have this resource available to the public so that we can catalyze design thinking as a skill that we can all learn, because I truly believe that everybody is a designer at heart. So Civic Design Lab is a model for civic innovation, which is at the intersection of these three values. Systems thinking, which is really a way to find a different way of working and to not be complacent in our status quo. Government really needs this. And human-centered design, because our work is all about people. It's about our community, but it's also about the people behind our services and policy that create them. And we want to put them in the same room from day one so that we are delivering the right type of service that resonate with community in their values and where they are. Thirdly, the racial equity lens. This is honoring Oakland's diversity. This is really what Oakland is about. So this is our North Star, and this is our process. So when we talk about design thinking, everybody has a slightly different take on how to implement design thinking, and it can be taught in very many different ways. But in government, we have found that this process works most effectively. So what does this look like in practice? We spend a lot of time listening to people. We spend a lot of time listening in listening sessions that can be called workshops, interviews, focus groups that we generally know of as consultation. But we go deeper, and we really engage with people to find out what the root causes of the problems we are experiencing at the surface level. So that was our dashboard, and we're really, happy to announce that this is going to be formalized into a government, so that the staff can have us as a resource to be more creative, to become the fantasticrats that we all want to be. Thank you.
And now we're getting into the meat of actually seeing the Civic Design Lab in action. And again, we're talking about the process here. We're talking about the approach of design thinking. And as the mayor said, stay tuned for March 20th when we actually really unveil for the first time, and my Ling really leads the process of the physical location. So I just want to make sure that we still are clarifying that. But to talk about one of the projects that the Civic Design Lab has already been doing and is currently working on and completing is Ethan Guy, another former Oaklander, or City of Oakland employee, not Oaklander, but a former City of Oakland employee that just recently left. I don't know why. We can ask him later. But I really enjoyed working with him. He's one of these fantasticrats, great leader in our City of Oakland community, now out in the field doing other amazing things. But here to talk about our work around healthy housing, please welcome Ethan Guy.
Thanks, Jose. So I was asked to kind of give two examples of work that we've done, really focusing on this design thinking aspects at the City of Oakland. Before I jump into healthy housing, I want to talk a little bit about one project that we did about a year ago, and that was the rent adjustment program. So what the rent adjustment program is, it's the main government body that deals with tenant and landlord disputes. So if you have an issue with your dishwasher, it breaks, and you want the government to help you, you come to the City of Oakland, you go to the rent adjustment program, and we help kind of resolve that dispute. The problem was about a year and a half ago, that was completely paper-based. So if you wanted to go down there, you wanted to talk to the city, you had to fill out a form, you had to go into the city hall, fill out a form. That then form got filed away in a filing cabinet, only be pulled out again a little bit later on. So if you're trying to design something that is incredibly inequitable, if you're trying to design something that has no human-centered design process, that's what it looks like. And that was the first thing that the mayor asked us to fix. Just a tiny little thing, just this small, giant program dealing with tenant-landlord disputes. So what we did is, with the help of 100 Resilient Cities, we reached out to one of our platform partners, Frog Design, to set up an initial design workshop where we invited property owners and tenants to sit down and really try to figure out how do we resolve this problem. The day before the workshop, 400 of those individuals decided to speak at City Council until 3 a.m. That was the environment that we were going to this process looking at. But rather than trying to just go out and procure a new system, what we wanted to do was we wanted to build something in-house, something that we could take care of internally and try to continue to improve upon as the days went on. So what we did was we reached out, we grabbed an amazing vendor in Tomorrow Partners to really help us think about what the users want and how do we address those user needs. In the end, what we developed was a system that's our maximum valuable product that really gets at the heart of being able to go online, file your forms, manage your cases, not have to go into the city every time that you just need a simple answer. In addition to that, we redesigned the website, brought it from a postgraduate reading level down to a 9th grade reading level, just so if you want to know how do I file a petition, you don't need a graduate degree to figure that out. The second piece to all this, as Jose mentioned, was our Healthy Housing Inspection Program. And what that is it's a proactive rental inspection program trying to find ways to address healthy housing in the city of Oakland. It's a pretty big issue. What we tried to do, though, is take this user-centered design and human-centered design process that we used on a website and on an online case management system, but apply it to policy. So not just saying we're trying to develop something that's fun to work on the website, but really try to say how do we create a policy that meets the needs of the users being the city, the users being tenants, the users being inspectors, all those individuals. How do we design something that's going to address their needs? We're still in the middle of designing this policy, but we're making pretty major strides. We've had lots of workshops to try to figure out what is the root cause of the issues that are facing our city when it comes to healthy housing and when it comes to inspections, and how do we design a system that's really going to be able to address those needs moving forward and for the long term. So those are the two projects.
Now, an issue that I'm really passionate about, I came from the small business world, leading an organization called Inner City Advisors. So for 10 years, I understood just the difficulty of how businesses interacted, or some of the challenges that businesses had when interacting with the city of Oakland. So another issue area that Marisa, Raya, project manager with the Economic Development Department team, is going to talk about is how this approach was applied to dealing with small businesses and their ability to improve their experience with permitting. So please welcome Marisa Raya.
Oh, I'm going to go back one. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm Marisa. I'm one of the first bureaucrats that got to use the Civic Design Lab space and process. Even while it was still under development, I couldn't wait. I needed it. And I have a muse for my human-centered design project, and this is her. I work a lot with Oakland's entrepreneurs and trying to figure out how to better support them, how to create what we call the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And Miss Chris is somebody who is an Oakland serial entrepreneur. She has opened at least 5 businesses in the last few years in Oakland, 4 of which are still running. And she is also a big civic volunteer, helped to staff the National Poetry Slam when we had it here, and generally just walks around Oakland being awesome all the time. And she was part of a small business focus group that I ran, and where she told me about her experience opening her restaurant east of the lake, She signed a lease on an existing restaurant only to find out that she had to bring it up to code in all these different ways before she could open it. And it almost exhausted her entire savings, and it almost took her down. And there's nobody at the City of Oakland that wants to be responsible for killing the dreams of a first-time entrepreneur. So she said, why don't we have something that is online that I can go to at any time that tells me all the permits I'm going to need and how much they cost? And we said, Miss Chris, yes. We should have something. We owe that to you, and we created it. It's called businesspermits.oaklandca.gov. We also have a zoning check site, zoningcheck.oaklandca.gov. You're welcome to test it on your phone right now if you want. And we did, I want to recognize Mylene Garcia because we worked with Code for America to do user research. We talked to entrepreneurs that visited the Business Assistance Center. We mapped out their happiness in their process of opening a business. And we created this site. Here it is in Chinese. Here it is in Spanish. It asks you what kind of business you want to open. It then shows you a map of the city that shows you where the zoning allows that type of business. It's a dynamic map that can change as you answer questions. Then it asks you more questions like, are you going to have outdoor seating? Will you have more than 300 bottles of nail polish? All of these things, will you have sound amplification? All of these things are triggers for health and safety requirements that the city is responsible for enforcing, and they require permits. So it gives you a list of permits. They're starting to add up here on the right, fees, certificates, et cetera, and at the end of it, it tells you how much they're all going to cost. And for a brick and mortar establishment, it can add up. This one is just over $9,000. But you can take this list, and if you're an entrepreneur, you can use it to negotiate your lease with a landlord on your tenant improvements, or you can use it to apply for a small business loan at a bank because it's accurate and it's detailed, and you can get all that information in just a couple of minutes. But we didn't stop there. We also created a site for all of our online services for businesses, which will be hosted on the city's new webpage, and it has the whole timeline for opening a business because it turns out that Oakland has a lot of resources, both outside the city as well as within, that are specifically to support low-income entrepreneurs and people from disadvantaged communities to open a business. And we want to make it really easy for those organizations to connect with the people who are looking for them, because you can get a great support system and a great entrepreneurial education here in Oakland, and you don't need to go in on your own. You don't need to risk your life savings without anybody watching out for you. And here's the site in Arabic, and I just show the languages, one, because I think they're beautiful, but two, because entrepreneurship is a really important wealth-building pathway for immigrants. And that's who we have a lot of in Oakland, and it's our job to create access to the economy for them. Thank you.
So I was supposed to talk a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing with the work around financial empowerment. And financial empowerment is, how do we actually ensure that all of our residents in the City of Oakland, especially low income, are financially secure and they have the financial capability to lead a financially secure life. So again, we talk a lot about Citibank. And yes, they're here today, but they're here today for a reason because they've been really thought leaders in the work that we do. One of the things that, again, other cities have, they have offices of financial empowerment. And this is not a new concept. New York has one, Denver's starting one, San Jose's thinking about starting one, because they're starting to think about how do we better deliver financial empowerment services to our residents in a more effective way. So when I came to the City of Oakland and working under the mayor, I asked the same question. First, let's move to address financial empowerment. So how do we better deliver the services? And first and foremost, we asked the question from the beginning, do we need an actual office of financial empowerment? And what we quickly learned was there's a lot of infrastructure involved with that. There's a lot of resources and capacity needed to start an office. We know how hard it is to even start one, knowing from a couple examples that we have recently. So using this approach that we've been talking about today, we said, is there a way that we can actually better create and coordinate these services that already exist in the city of Oakland? And I do want to recognize people like Estelle Clemens and Sarah Bedford with the Department of Human Services who hold a lot of that work. And that work existed in their heads. And one of the things that we've been trying to do for the past year and a half is figure out, how do we deliver the earned income tax credit? How do we deliver financial services and training? And all the way to asset building opportunities for our youth. And we don't need an office. What we need is actually, how do we actually better coordinate? And that's what Citi's funding us to do, is finding that way that we inside City Hall, inside the city organization, City of Oakland organization, we can better coordinate our services so we can deliver it in a more effective way. And another launch that we're doing on Thursday is the EITC launch that we partnered with Citi, we partnered with United Way of the Bay Area and local organizations as a way to better deliver the earned income tax credit, and also this year include the entrepreneurs who now, because of the state bill that passed, sole proprietors and small businesses are actually now able to apply for earned income tax credit. So again, this is something that, using this process, using this approach, we're trying to better deliver these services. And there's more to come, and we'll talk more about some of the work that we're doing around youth employment and how we're actually now asking the question, is getting a job for youth enough? Or do we build in financial capability, asset creation strategies into the job and into our services? And Stephen Bader's here with the Executive Director of the Oakland Workforce Development Board, who's really taking the lead in saying, how can we better deliver these services so that when we give an opportunity to a youth, it's not just a job for the summer, but we're actually building that capability for them to build assets for the future. Both in even getting a better job, but also building savings and assets so they can actually be better financially secure, or build a path for a career where they can get the skill sets or education to advance their life as well and be more financially secure. So more to come on the youth employment. That's one that I'm really passionate about. This year is going to be a staple year for us and how we deliver youth employment services in the city of Oakland, and I'm very excited on how we're going to approach it. And we're starting early, and we have a big ambitious goal, and we want to do it differently. We want to do it in a way that summer jobs is just not enough anymore. We have to build more capabilities for our young people here in Oakland. So more on that. So now we're moving on to actually the people that are on the ground doing the work. So we have a community panel, and I'm going to introduce them, and if you can join me up here as I introduce you. We have Larry Brooks with Alameda County, the Community Development Agency, who was part of the work around rap. Applause, come on, yes. We also have Tori Howard, who leads the Oakland Promise K to College program and has been involved in how the Civic Design Lab has actually been engaging the Oakland Promise around better parent engagement. So, Tori? And then we have Corey Chen, who is a dear friend. He's a staple champion and ambassador of everything Oakland. He is one of the founders of Red Bay Coffee. Who's had Red Bay Coffee? Thank you, thank you. Don't drink anything else other than Red Bay Coffee. I'm just kidding. But no, I'm not. And he's also a member of the Oakland Workforce Development Board. So we're going to have a panel. Thank you. So I want to go just down the line so you can introduce yourself just really briefly and just talk about some of the work that you've been doing, and then we can go back in some questions that I have for each of you. But introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the work that you did and your experience with your work around the Civic Design Lab. Why don't we start with Larry?
Testing. Can you hear me?
I don't think they're on.
How about that? Okay, Larry Brooks, Alameda County Healthy Homes Department Lead Poisoning Prevention Program. So I've had an opportunity to work with the city for the last few years on healthy housing, as Ethan Guy mentioned, and in terms of working with the Civic Design Lab, participating in their stakeholder meetings, providing information to them with regards to the needs of healthy housing within the city of Oakland. As many of you have heard, City of Oakland has a child lead poisoning rate higher than Flint, Michigan. So we have our work cut out for us in that regard. And in terms of our affordable housing crisis, again, we have our work cut out for us, because affordable housing also means preserving existing housing and keeping it healthy.
Hi, my name is LaTori Howard, or Tori for short. I am the Oakland Promise Kindergarten to College Program Associate. And I'm actually born and raised here in Oakland, and the Oakland Promise is a program that I really believe in, because it's designed to triple the number of students that are not only attending but graduating from college in the next 10 years. And to me, that speaks a lot, because although I was able to go to college and graduate, I know that a lot of my peers did not. And the statistic that Oakland Promise is based on is that if 100 students were to start high school right now, only 10% of them are going to graduate college, and that's a problem. So the Oakland Promise is like I said, it's a cradle to career initiative. So from birth until you go to college, we are there with you every step of the way. We have programs in almost every single school site across Oakland. But just providing resources is not enough, So we partnered with the Civic Design Lab because we really wanted to make sure that we were talking with the community about what they need, what kind of support do they need, what kind of programs do we need, who can we partner with to help you, help us to help you. And so we've had several community meetings this year, even so far, geared towards bringing together teachers, principals, parents, everyone that we can think of in the community who would have an input, and getting their feedback on what it is that we need to do to be more effective.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's great to be here with you all. So for the last several years, I've helped to launch and manage a mission-driven coffee roasting company here in Oakland in the Fruitvale, Red Bay Coffee, with a focus on one, fantastic coffee, but also workforce development, and how do we create opportunities for formerly incarcerated folks, for some disabled folks, former foster care youth in the community, and removing a lot of these barriers to entry that a lot of people have historically experienced. That led to, through my friendship with Jose, to joining the Workforce Development Board, and also Stephen Bader is here. They're doing tremendous work and thinking about how do we as a community leverage a lot of federal funding and things for those types of training programs to make sure that we can employ people, but also the folks are getting trained who are coming from marginalized backgrounds and barriers to employment and whatnot. And then that led to, I'm a curious person naturally. I get interested in a lot of different things, but that also led to hearing about the Civic Design Lab and being very interested in the work that's happening, and also coming from the perspective of small business, thinking about service utilization and how we pay taxes, and so we pay into services that the city provides, and then utilizing those services, and that goes further when you think about being mission driven, working with reentry programs, workforce training programs, but also just straight up, garbage collection and everything that we utilize as a business and that we need to function as a business. It got me thinking a lot more just about human-centered design and human-centered thinking being I think at the heart of what we're trying to do at Red Bay, wanting to go deeper in that with the Civic Design Lab. So I'm actually a fellow right now. I'm parked at 9th floor at City Hall, 1 or 2 days a week right now to try to think through a lot more of this with kind of the immense challenges that we're facing in Oakland right now.
Thank you very much. And I want to ask a question just in terms of your experience in dealing with this process. So we've been talking about human-centered design and just the term that has been thrown around there. For you, what what was your experience personally? What did it mean for you as you were going, and each of you can answer this question. How would you define that term, and how did you experience it yourself? For you.
Go first. I have to mention I'm a Skyline grad too. All right. For me personally, when we went to the meetings where stakeholders were present, oftentimes being caught up in the office within the county, there's little opportunity to interact directly with the folks on the ground. And so being able to go to the Civic Design Labs and listen to people from the community to give me another perspective on how the services are being delivered, what are the challenges and barriers, what types of coordination do I need to have as a county employee with city employees was extremely beneficial.
First of all, I'm also a Skyline graduate, so just
Go Titans, go Titans.
But secondly, to me, human-centered design is taking into account the people and the stories of all the people that you're working with. So I throw out a statistic, but what's important to think about is, why is that statistic true? What are the reasons that people are not going to college, or what are the reasons that they're not graduating? And sometimes, sometimes it's financial, but sometimes it's maybe that they didn't feel that someone believed in them. It could be that they had to work 2 jobs. It could, there are so many other factors that go into it. It's not just the numbers. So human-centered design to me is taking time to ask these people, like, what is it that you need? What is it that I can help you with? And how can we work together to get you there? Because, it's really important that the vision of the Oakland Promise is that we are providing people with the opportunities, the expectations, and the resources to complete their career and professional expectations, and to be successul. That is what we want.
If we're just name dropping schools, so I went to Redwood Heights, Bret Hart, and Bishop O'Dowd. So product of OUSD and with private for high school. But yeah, so I would say, I think in terms of like working with the reentry community, what has really helped for us is partnering with different community-based organizations or city and county programs that provide a larger support base for people. So I think that what we try to offer is we're an empathetic employer, right? So we're willing to hire folks, regardless of how systems impacted they've been and things. But we're not social workers, we're not case managers. I could make a mean latte, we can roast coffee, but that's not, we need partners like in this. And so thinking about human-centered design and also really putting the folks that we employ at the center of this kind of ecosystem of support is what has been the most beneficial for us. And it hasn't always worked out. And some collaborations have worked better than others, but it's been this learning process. But as long as we can stay accountable to like this focus on the kind of human-centered design aspect of it, and an empowerment piece, that's what's been helpful for us.
And then just one last question each quickly. Many of the folks here are, maybe some of them already are familiar with this work and just interested to learn more. What advice or recommendations would you have, and what's your call to action to them to get involved in this work?
Stronger together. I know that term's being used a lot for another cause, but I do believe that that's one of the major messages I got from the Civic Design Lab work, that it brought me in touch with other resources. You're always hearing about government having to do more with less. Well, the way you do more with less is by bringing resources together, by creating collaborations with other organizations, both public and private. And so I think that's what I gained most out of this experience.
In my opinion, I think the thing that is most beneficial from this kind of, so I would say getting the feedback of the community, because especially in Oakland, it has a history of just being a strong community that is very change-oriented, very driven. You know, if something needs to be done, this is a community of people that will get it done, but you have to connect with them. You know, so how do you connect with them? Use things like the Civic Design Lab to find out, like I said, what is it that you need from me? How can I support you? How can I use you so that you can use me? How can we grow together? Because right now, I love this city. I'm born and raised here, but we need so much to be done. So much to be done. But the only way it's going to get done is if we make these connections. So I think it's just really important to use these, to branch out with partners, to branch out with school teams, to just connect on a much larger scale so that we as a community can grow.
I would say we all have a role to play. I think that I'm impressed with, look at like even just the diversity of like you have the county, you have education, and you have small business perspective on this panel right now. And so I would encourage everyone to think about whatever kind of position that you're in, how can you be a change agent? You know, how can you try to leverage and have some social impact or move resources to the community? And there's a lot of ways that you could do that, and I think that there's very good kind of programs right now, like this. I think the Civic Design Lab is one. And so we all have a role to play. Think about your own role in that.
Thank you very much. And with that, we want to give him a round of applause. Thank you for being here. So now we actually wanted to leave a few minutes to see if we can take a couple questions. We heard from the funders, from the people that got behind it. We heard from some of the work. So any questions that anyone has for me, for the Civic Design Lab team, for the panelists, for the mayor, we'll take some questions right now. And we will take just a few so we can get on to some networking and we can actually interact with each other. That's a great question, and actually we want more of that. So I would say Alexandra Lee is your point person in terms of depending on what idea you have or what you're trying to tackle, what problem you're trying to solve. I think that's really the work that Alexandra does, is trying to really work with you on figuring out exactly what problem you're trying to solve in the community, and then figure out how we in the Civic Design Lab can be a resource and bring in the right team members from our departments to help on the specific issue. But I would say for the most part, it's Alexandra the point person, or obviously we're all available, but Alexandra would be that person. Right here first, and then.
I'm likely to know Oakland, which is Brigade Code for America. We've been working for the last 4 or 5 years on trying to make government better for the people. And we're a group of volunteer technologists that meet every Tuesday at City Hall. How can a group like us get involved in Civic Design Lab and contribute?
Well, I would say, I know that My Ling attends those, and I think My Ling has been a great champion of that work. But I would say My Ling is actually a great resource. I think we're a team here. It's not that this is just one team. I think My Ling and Kiran are people that I would look to because they're more familiar with Open Oakland than I am. But it seems like Alexandra might have an answer for this, or is that what?
Hello.
Yeah.
So there are 2 ways to get involved. One is to look at our website. It has all of our latest projects and kind of projects in progress, so you get to see kind of live updates, and we try to be vigilant. But we also have great experience with your user testing group. So Oakland has this awesome user testing group that has helped us with a rent adjustment program. And they're also trained to train others in Oakland to do better user testing of apps or websites that come up, just to kind of make sure that the tech that we're developing has that human touch. So we would love to continue working with Open Oakland in that regard, and see how we can continue to collaborate, because it's definitely something that we're trying to do it in parallel.
And Mylene, do you have any answer to that? You good? Come talk to any one of us. There's a question in the back. You. I'm sorry. As you were asking that question, I saw Shawnee and Vicky packing up and trying to leave the room. Because it does take resources, right? So this work is not something that can be done on a volunteer basis. There's a lot of volunteers that, helped us get to where we are right now, but it does take resources. And it really depends. I mean, I can't really give you an exact number. The mayor's going to answer this.
I'm not going to give you an exact number, but I want to point out that part of the Civic Design Lab is about piloting a concept, trying it out, testing it, iterating, improving it, until you've got something that is worthy of institutionalization and scaling. And that is actually how we started our resilience work. Rockefeller came to us with this concept of 100 resilient cities. I mean, we applied for it. We wanted it badly, but we won. And they funded the chief resilience officer for the first 3 years. And during that time, the position proved its value. So in the last budget cycle, we went to the city council and said, hey, you've seen the value of this work. Would you be willing to make this a permanent position within city government? And the city council said yes. We're on that same mission with the creative director of the Civic Design Lab. Right now, Alexandra is grant funded. Her position is not a City of Oakland position, not yet. So it's for all of us to find out how amazingly beneficial this position is, this service is. And then we have a great case to make to the city council in our next budget process to say, look, we tested this out. The private sector helped us take the risk, because government is not very good at risk-taking, right? Love us, I know, we're special people, but we're not great at risk-taking. But this allows us, a public-private partnership allows us to do appropriate risk-taking, and when we see that it works, then we can make it permanent within the city. So that's not an evil plot, it's our very clear plan for this work because we believe in it. But you all will be a very important piece of demonstrating whether this is good for Oakland or not, whether it deserves to live forever within the organization. And I hope you say yes.
And I would just add to that Shawnee and Vicky can chime in as well, but I think that if Berkeley's thinking about doing it, I think you have to come to them and say, this is a problem that we're trying to solve. This is something that we want to try, and come to them with a project. So we're not raising money just to raise money's sake. So it's not just operational. We come to them with projects. We'd say, this is a problem that we see in the city of Oakland. So you heard about some of them today. We're looking into the fines and fees for the city of Oakland, how people get fined, and looking at that issue. The city of San Francisco has the Financial Justice Initiative, so we're kind of replicating or looking at something like that in the city of Oakland. But it has to be, what is it that you're trying to solve, and then how do you get the right partners, like city or others? Rockefeller's here too. They should be on the table to support this as well. But it really depends. So there's no dollar figure. It's just about, again, like the mayor said, what's the pilot, and then how can you use and build in some evaluation component to it so you can make the case to the city that says this needs to be institutionalized so we can scale it inside City Hall. One last question so we can get to networking and food. Last question.
So Oakland is a very unique kind of city.
So that is a question that we're continuing to explore. And our current position is that every city is so different. So I think the principles of what we're doing, definitely we want to see go viral nationally because it's so beneficial and we're one of the first groups trying to demonstrate that. And I think 100 Resilient Cities has something to say because they were the first funders of this initiative.
Sorry, I didn't really reference that the network of our 100 cities, right? And that this network of chief resilience officers come together on frequent bases to like share best practices constantly. And so we really see this flagship initiative as one that can be sharing best practices across our network. And last week, Mayor Schaaf was on a panel of resilience with many of our mayors at U.S. Conference of Mayors, sharing best practices, sharing what Oakland is doing around resilience. So we have this incredible network, but I just want to put out there, yet again, Oakland's at the forefront of thinking about this from the lens of resilience, racial equity, human-centered design. And we really want to take this pilot and help other cities really learn from that. So we are thrilled to kind of take this across our North America network. We have 24 cities in the US alone that Oakland can be a leader in, and then throughout the world as well.
And the word from Citi, community development.
So as we do our job, and our job as founding funders of concept design, right? Like the mayor said, this is a pilot. What we did in New York is up and running. What we're doing here is now up and running. What we can do on our side is bring together the two that we're funding, right, and share best practices. So as this starts to have effects, we can share the best practices and hopefully learn from one another as we go. It's the whole idea about being a founding funder, about being the concept funder. It's the taking of the risk that Mayor Schaaf has mentioned, and it's really bringing the public and private together to really benefit, you know, in this case, the residents of Oakland.
Thank you so much. So with that, we're going to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all those that are on the web, some following live stream. The last person that I want to thank that I forgot to mention is the other person that's been critical to the work that we do is Carelli Ordaz Salto in the mayor's office. She likes to stay stealth, but she's been a critical part of the team. So I just want to make sure that we recognize. So also, she's another resource that will help you navigate how to get involved with Civic Design Lab, how to get involved with the rest of the work that we do. She's a great resource, great colleague of ours. So I just want to make sure that Carelli is recognized as well. So with that, I just want to say thank you. There's food, there's drinks. We're here for questions. And I appreciate you taking the time to learn more about Civic Design Lab and check out our website and share it widely. So thank you very much.